All right, we're off and we're rolling. And I'm waiting for my friend Steve Way to join me today. I can't wait to talk to my friend Steve because I haven't talked to him since like 2020. So I'm super excited to talk to my friend Steve. Hey, Bree. Bree was involved in Easter Seals project. Hey, congratulations on your event that you just did. I saw that in New York City. That is absolutely amazing. I'm waiting for my friend Steve to join me here. Just a minute as we deal with the technical parts here. Instagram in a while. So he's here. Oh my God. Yay.
Yeah.
That worked so much better than last time, right?
Progress.
I mean, we're fallible as people, guys. Like, we're doing our own tech over here, so
Right.
it's pretty much all it's gonna be. I have to tell you, I'm wearing my Steve Way comic shirt. I like it.
Yes.
Mainly so I can say the phrase, I have Steve Way on my kitty.
Hey, you know what? Very few people can actually say that. And you're one of the select few.
I feel very lucky. I have Steve Way on my titties, guys. I have Steve Way on my titties.
Come on.
You definitely need to pick up some Steve Way merch. He still has it, I believe.
That's right. Get on this level.
What?
Get on this level.
Exactly. Get all the merchandise. Get all the drip, as the kids say. Well, guys, if you don't know my friend, actor and comedian Steve Way, you've been living under a flippin' rock. Steve Way is on the amazing Emmy-winning show Ramy, created by Ramy Youssef. We're not going to bring up anything else because of the strike right now. But you're phenomenal. So I watched season 3 a long time ago, and I remember messaging you and just being like, oh my God, holy shit, Steve's on screen with Bella Hadid. Bella Hadid, y'all. Like, arguably one of the hottest women in the universe. And she's playing an autistic coded character. And my husband wanted me to tell you, Steve, that you were like the funniest part of season 3. And I will go to my grave saying Steve was the funniest part of season 3, especially the lines in Ramy where you're particularly talking about disability. I don't know, you say something like autism is a glamour disability or something like that. And there's just like, there's so much well-written comedy in season 3 that's particularly oriented through the disabled lens. I just thought it was hysterical. I thought it was amazing. His girlfriend, Bella Hadid, y'all, couldn't drive. I can't drive. That's a very real thing in the disabled community. You can't drive in season 3, and you can't drive in real life, right? Neither can I.
Yeah, it's all real.
So
And
these very real things of like going to comedy shows, needing a ride to get to a comedy show where you're performing at. And I don't know, you guys have some really hilarious scenes where you're like accepting an award, and season 3 is hilarious. And We definitely need to get Steve Ray on Hot Ones, guys. If we can get Ramy Youssef on Hot Ones, Steve deserves his chance in the hot seat with Sean Evans on Hot Ones, guys. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I might die doing it, but I think it's worth it.
But, like, would you do it for the internet glory?
I have no choice.
I
I
mean,
have
you
no
sort of
choice.
like have to, right? You've been called
Danny,
your
Danny,
bomb.
my boy Danny would pay to see that, and I'm sure you would, my friend.
I think you would be amazing on Hot Ones. Anyway, I'm all over the place, but I just wanted to talk about how much I love season 3. It was so good. You're the best part. I'm like, why does Steve Wade not get more screen time, you all? Because he's the best part.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm okay with that because it leaves the audience wanting more, right? So I can't give the people everything at once.
Exactly.
I gotta hold back.
Would you say you were doing the majority of the writing with Ramy, where you just kind of like, hey, I've got this bit about my girlfriend being autistic, loving the office, not being able to drive. How would you
So
guys get
no,
each other?
that's all Ramy's idea, right? So Ramy will have an idea, and he'll call me up when he's in the writers' room, and just be like, "Hey, Steve, we're doing this." The example I always love to give is, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, season 2, episode 7, when we're in Atlantic City,
Yeah.
right? So Ramy calls me up, and spoiler alert, but he says, "Hey, man, I got you on speakerphone in the writers' room. We're gonna do an episode where I jerk you off." And I'm just like, fine. I don't really have a choice, clearly. But what I love about the creative process here is that Ramy and I will get together and we'll talk about the episode and we'll make sure that it happens exactly how I would do it. Right? Like, we're not here to tell the story of the entire disabled community. I can't do that. I can only tell my story. But we're going to tell my story in the most authentic, real, honest way possible.
Right. Guys, I say that in the disabled community all the time. I didn't do my intro because I'm so nervous talking to Steve because I'm such a fucking goober every time I talk to you. But I talk about that all the time in the disabled community. Disability is not a monolith, and no disabled person represents all the views of the disabled community. I have my own company claiming disability. I do not represent the entirety of viewpoints for the disabled community. I don't even represent the viewpoints for disabled people with cerebral palsy. Because believe it or not, we're all fucking different. And we all have different viewpoints, and it's like any other community. We all have different views, and it's okay to have different views. I think one of the funniest things, and I'm probably making it a bit too deep, but that's how I view your character, is a very deep, meaningful character for me, because it's not surface level disability talk, if that makes any sense.
Right, right. I mean, in 3 seasons, I think the words muscular dystrophy are said once. right? I'm not Ramy's disabled friend. I'm Ramy's friend who's disabled.
Right.
And I know it doesn't sound like there's a difference there. But you and I know that's a huge difference. Right? Disability doesn't happen in a vacuum. Right? And it's so nuanced. And we really make the effort to really just show what it's actually like to be disabled.
Right.
Ramy and I know each other over 20 years, right? And I don't think my character would be portrayed the way it is if it wasn't for our friendship. Because I can only do so much as an actor, as a performer, and even as an activist. But I need help to get that out of me. And again, I don't think that would have happened if Ramy and I hadn't known each other since we were 10 years old.
That's always kind of the vibe. I'm a wannabe comedian. I'm a wannabe disabled comedian. I'm not a particularly funny person. I'm funny looking, but I can't get on stage and like do stand-up comedy like Steve can. And he does do stand-up comedy, guys, and I would love to see you live in New Jersey one of these days. But there's an art to it, right? I mean, this may be controversial, but I'm a controversial person. But I really enjoyed the series Louie, and it had that kind of integration of very serious topics and a lot of humor that really hit the mark. And how I fell in love with Steve's character was not because he was a disabled character, but that was important to me, right? I'm a disabled viewer. I want to see disabled representation on screen. But when I saw Steve first season, when Ramy was helping Steve in the bathroom and portraying very real things that disabled people go through, even in Hollywood, guys. Even in Hollywood, we need PCA care and we need people to help us. In season 1, when you weren't afraid to go there with those issues, there's such a fear, right, of portraying disability in the pity lens. And I think sometimes when we're so afraid to go there, we don't portray disability in a realistic light, or we just ignore it completely. And there's such humanness in the entire show. But I mean, the main focus is Ramy, his family, his identity, his Muslim identity, and the intricacies of that. And it's interconnected because we have a complicated relationship with our disabled identity. And one thing I loved about season 3, with you dating Bella Hadid. Steve was dating Bella Hadid, y'all. I'm talking about Steve with how much he's like,
it's stupid.
Bella Hadid, okay? Anyway, but there was a debate between Ramy and Steve if she was actually disabled. And that for me, I mean, we all know, even Steve and I've been born with a disability. Steve is born with a disability. Even I get, as a disabled person on the internet, you're faking it. So that conversation, you're so not afraid to go there. Why don't you think that you're afraid to go there as opposed to other shows like Sex Education and really portraying the good and the bad of disability?
Oh, we just don't care. Yeah, we just really don't care anymore. I mean, like you said, I think once we portrayed Ramy having to go to the bathroom, we're just like, yeah, we can do whatever we want. And I remember when we were getting ready to shoot that, and everybody asked Ramy and I if we wanted to practice. You know, like Ramy practicing, lifting me up, putting me in my chair. I'm just like, no, we've been doing this since we were kids. You know, it's just who we are.
Ron's been helping you since you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And we just,
So
like,
the
I don't know. It's us.
carrying you into the bed and like getting your ramp, that's real life shit. Nobody
Yes.
ever does this shit for me. I wish they fucking would, you know? Like,
No, we've been doing that over 15 years.
wow.
So it's just like we don't even think about it. You know, and obviously we'll have conversations about the Muslim community, the disabled community. You know, all the things we like, we don't like. And yeah, we're just gonna show whatever is on our minds. Because again, we don't care.
And sometimes, guys, I know we hate having this conversation in the disabled community, and I used to work in social services. There's a huge stigma with people with disabilities, particularly people with intellectual disabilities, having any kind of sexual autonomy. So when you have a show where you have a disabled character and your best friend jerks off, your best friend, I mean, that's just funny in general. Like, that's just giving Bupkis vibes for me with with Pete Davidson. Like, that very much like not afraid to go there. And I just feel like we're still holding back a little. Not with Ramy, guys. That's why you need to watch it. Available on streaming services.
That's right, check it out.
But yeah, it's a interesting dynamic, and I don't think so. At least for me, I don't think people realize. I'm gonna switch gears here. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but I don't think people realize that disabled people are still on the picket lines. I don't think disabled people realize or that the strike is still happening for the actors, that the strike has been settled for the writers. You know, you've got very active voices like Adam Conover speaking for the writing community, but we haven't made amends in the acting community. Steve, can you shed some light for me? Like, why do you think disabled actors in Hollywood on the picket lines right now is so important to see? And why do you think it's so important to be a part of this strike?
Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of people don't even see us as actors to begin with. You know, SAG is made up of something like 160,000 members. So it's inevitable that, you know, there are going to be disabled union members, right? And sure, you can see someone, you know, on the picket lines in a wheelchair, like myself, but how many of those people are going to have invisible disabilities, right? That like you'll never know about. You know, the strike has hurt a lot of people, right? Disabled or not. But when we talk about how it affects us, and you know when I say this, I'm not playing a victim card.
Right.
But, you know, if you're on Medicaid, we're not allowed to have a lot of money.
Right.
We can't really own assets. I lost my union health insurance because of the strike. And that prevented me from getting a new wheelchair. Right? That prevented me from getting a robot arm that I've been trying to get for over a year and a half. And these are all things that would just make my life easier. Right? It doesn't give me an advantage of any kind. Right? It just gives my life just more ease. But and it's like, yeah, everyone is suffering. Everyone's struggling to pay rent, get food, just make ends meet, right? But you gotta take the next step. And you have to acknowledge that for people like me, I'm not allowed by our federal government to have like a savings account.
Right. Right.
Right? So
Same. Okay, same.
right, so like if I can't have more than $2,000 to my name, then how am I supposed to prepare to be out of work for 6 months? Which is what's happened, right? So again, it's a yes. Everyone is suffering, everyone is struggling. But we have to acknowledge that added layer that people like I go through. The systemic oppression, right? The forced poverty that we go through, right? And of course, you know, the federal government would never expect someone like me to be on television, to be a part of 2 unions. But here I am. But that doesn't make me better than anyone else. Right? I still have to play by the same set of rules. Right? And now, again, that does not mean that I should play by a different set of rules. It means we should get rid of those rules entirely. Right? Get rid of the income penalty, get rid of the marriage penalty. Yeah, it's so frustrating. You know, this year has been really, really hard because again, I can't have a savings account. So when I'm out of work for literally half the year, and from what I'm reading, there's no end in sight. How am I supposed to just survive?
Right.
Not to buy, not to get ahead, just survive. And that's why we're still on the picket lines to say, hey, we're still here. We still want to work, but we gotta get this over with.
Right. And just what you're talking about, there's no acknowledgement. And I'm not an actor. I'm a commoner, folks, who's starstruck every time I sit next to Steve or do anything with Steve because I'm just like, oh my God, like, he's one of the funniest people on fucking TV. Like, that just blows my mind. But Steve and I, we're in the same camp when it comes to being. I talk a lot about my SSI story, but I'm currently being punished for overpayments from the government for SSI, and it's something that happens to disabled people who are in a lower income bracket. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in a trailer park, and my mom put me on SSI when I was 3. And so I've been part of the system since I was 27 years old. Obviously, I'm still 27. No, I'm 34. But I got off of SSI. I got a corporate job. I did everything a good disabled person was supposed to do. And I got punished by our federal government. And I'm still being punished to this day. And I was just talking to disabled people this morning where some of their houses are in foreclosure. This is a very serious issue. The majority, when I went to go see a lawyer for my SSI overpayment, they told me the median income that a disabled person has to pay back to the federal government for SSI benefits is $60,000. What disabled person do you fucking know that can pay back a $60,000 claim? I'm lucky, guys. I'm actually privileged that I only have to pay the government $5,000 back. That's what I was told, and that's why I actively work to tell disabled people, if you plan on getting off of SSI and getting out of the system, please, for the love of God, go see vocational rehabilitation, go see your local disability services, and get help. I was one of those smart-ass disabled people that thought I was better than everybody else and thought I could do it by myself, but I couldn't, and I got in trouble. I got hit with the overpayments too. I pay my mom's overpayments. Yeah. The money, see, it's funny because I get told on the internet every day I'm a lazy disabled person who just lives off the government. I wish I lived off the fucking government, guys. I don't think able-bodied people realize that it's not free money. We have to pay it back. And we're constantly penalized in the system. Now, if you're not familiar with SSI, you're allowed $2,000 in assets as a whole. $3,000 if you're married, which isn't true because I'm married as a disabled person, and that's not true. But technically, in theory, according to the federal government. But with this SSI Penalty Elimination Act, they want to increase your savings account as a disabled person to $10,000. So that's why people like Steve are actively advocating so hard to get this passed. But what angers me is this was all part of the SSI Restoration Act that wasn't passed in 2020, and now it's trying to be introduced again. And again, I think it comes down to stigma. People view SSI as just free money, and disabled people aren't in poverty. For some disabled people, SSI is their only option. So it's just, it's hard. It's hard and it's confusing. I had no idea until you told me that you were on SSI. Then I interviewed my friend Keith Jones, who's an Emmy winner, guys, won an Emmy, and is on SSI benefits. This is not unfamiliar when it comes to disability in Hollywood. We're always at the bottom. And I feel like it's been this way since the 1930s, since the movie Freaks. We've been kind of the bottom of the caste system here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing that really bothers me the most is that these laws have not changed in decades.
Since 1986, that's before I was born.
Yeah, I mean,
If any other government entity was not updated in that, like, time span, like, it's just, but I do have concerns about if it were actually passed, because I know when SSI increases with inflation, we lose our food stamps, we lose our benefits. I'm a person who grew up in poverty. These government agencies don't have a good ability to communicate with one another.
But those are all manufactured crises, right? They happen because they let it happen, right? It's not just like one goes up and then the other one automatically goes down. One goes up and then just forget about the other one. Or they purposely try to cut it, which happens a lot. But it all happens on purpose. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. I don't think overpayments are an accident, guys. No.
No.
This is every time I have this conversation, and I'm treated, I love Steve so much. I'm treated kind of like I'm stupid out here because every time I talk about having to make overpayments to the government, there's always some disabled person jumping in my goddamn comments that is like, you could have gotten that forgiven, if you just went through the appeals process. Guys, I appealed 3 times, okay? I was turned down by the state of Iowa, all right? Like, I don't know what else to tell y'all because you're all like acting like, we're supposed to know all this shit and we don't. You don't know until you're already hit with it. That's why I tell disabled entrepreneurs, if you're going to be a disabled entrepreneur out here, stay on your fucking benefits. I don't feel bad as a disabled person who's 34 years old and has gone full cycle, has been in the system, now I'm out of the system. I wish I could go back in again, but I can't. Like, don't get off your fucking benefits and don't let anybody out here make you feel like a piece of shit for being on benefits. This is real life. This is what Hollywood actors, Hollywood amazing comedians, that's basically the Artie Lang of my community have to deal with. Guys, if you don't know who Artie Lang is, you're too fucking young for me, okay? Like, but
I'm not that much of an alcoholic yet.
I
I'm on
hope
my
Artie
way. I'm getting there.
What did you say?
I'm not that much of an alcoholic yet. I'm getting there. I'm on my way, but I'm not there yet.
I feel that. I don't even want to get into the percentage of disabled people who are alcoholics. But that's a conversation for another day, y'all. We're in pain all the fucking time. We don't know what's. And when I sat down with Jim for Disability Pride Month, I loved how Jim LeBrecq, Oscar-nominated director Jim LeBrecq from the movie Crip Camp, was talking about there's so much trauma associated with being a disabled person. The fact that we're not all drunks is fucking amazing. To me, it's a joke, guys. Everybody calm down. This stuff is traumatic. And I wish more disabled people, because you're the only disabled person I know in Hollywood that advocates for PCA care. And I've talked to a lot of disabled actors out here. So I think there's a little bit of a division going on with, I think there's a little bit of privilege involved. I don't want to use that word, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just, I don't seem to come across a lot of disabled actors who are actually parts of these systems. Let me rephrase that. I don't come across a lot of disabled influencers and people on the internet who are part of Medicaid, SSI, SSDI. I feel like a fish out of fucking water because I grew up in poverty. So this has been my life and I know how to do the systems somewhat, but I still got screwed. And I'm like, why is there such a disconnect in the disabled community with people who are on benefits versus the ones who aren't?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's weird, like, I only have 18,000 followers on Instagram. Like, if I had a bigger platform, if I was getting, like, branded deals, sponsored posts, yeah, I would use that every chance I got.
Adidas, where the fuck are you? Sponsor Steve Way, Adidas.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I kind of plateaued with, like, getting followers, and, I don't know, in this weird internet world, like, my talents aren't enough. all they care about is the follower count first. So if I don't have the follower count, then automatically they just pass me over.
Guys,
Just go, yeah.
why the fuck aren't you following Steve? He's the funniest disabled person out here. My friend Zach is very funny, but you're funny. No,
Love you, Zach.
he's the funniest person out here, guys. You need to be following Steve. Wait, can we talk about that for just a moment if you feel so inclined?
What?
Get sponsors, I feel that more. But well, guys, let me kind of explain. Let me break this down because I'm actually teaching a class about content creation, but the algorithm is changing right now, and that's because of Meta and purchases that have been made through Meta, and they want. Let me put it this way: they want to push out content for people who've subscribed to the service. I am not subscribed to Meta. I don't give a fuck about a blue check, y'all. That means nothing to me. That's an arbitrary metric. But they are pushing out more content for people who are paid on the platform. It will become a place in media where you will have to pay for viewership. It's how TikTok is going. It's how Meta is going. It fucking sucks, right? Because the internet is kind of that last frontier of freedom, right? Our freedom of speech. So I find that more and more as a disabled person who's just a rando out here. I'm just a podcast host, and I'm blown away by the willingness of Emmy-winning directors to sit down with me and talk. Like I sat down with Paris Barkley and we talked about the disabled representation in the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix. And I think it's interesting because there seems to be a connection between getting a larger social media presence and, I don't know, it gives you like clout in Hollywood, I guess. So is that a prerequisite for some of these talent agencies? Guys, I'm not represented by a talent agency. I have been approached by a few, but I'm like, I'm not an actor. That's not what I'm trying to do out here. But I am curious about those connections. Like, do you find that shows do better if the people have a large social media following?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard. Like, when you look at how many people, how many celebrities and influencers, they get book deals just based on their follower count. And they get these like $1 million book deals and nobody buys the books. With how many TikTokers and people who are big on Vine, like, were cast in, in movies and TV shows, and they're not good because they're not actors.
Right.
Right? So, the people in power just look at follower count and they think that will automatically translate to a viewership, and it doesn't.
I just met that in Five Nights at Freddy's, guys. How funny would Steve have been in Cocaine Bear? I think that shit would have been hilarious if Steve was a disabled hype, just like rolling along, and then he could have these whole bits about how disabled people fucking hype. Like one commercial that I love right now is a Peloton commercial that has an amputee model in the Peloton commercial. I'm like, fucking exactly, because disabled people exercise. I don't think I've ever seen a disabled person in an exercise commercial. I am happy for all of my people, for Tom Banks, my friend Melanie, who's booked stuff with QVC, Selma Blair, booking stuff with QVC, non-struck work. There's work. It's weird. It's a weird time. I'm going to ask another weird question, but do you think I want to actually talk to somebody about this because do you think that's what created the disconnect between when writers and actors started striking and the entire internet? Because there was kind of like, well, actors are getting paid thousands of dollars and they're celebrities, and why should I care about a strike? You know, why should I care about Fran Drescher getting out there? And do you think in the industry, particularly until this strike happened, there was kind of a, I don't know, like an unwillingness to disclose? Is it more, is there just a lot of exposure and not as much paid events? Let's talk brass tacks here, like real life, getting a paycheck versus exposure. Because we all know exposure is bullshit. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. Now exposure definitely does not translate to like a big bank account. Um, there was a writer on The Bear. Shout out to my boy Chris Storer. Just got picked up for a third season. One of the writers went to the WGA Awards with a negative bank account balance. He had to borrow money from his parents to buy a suit to go to this award show, that he was nominated for.
wow.
Yeah, it's like people just don't understand. We're not paid that much. Writing doesn't pay a lot. And that's why you still see writers with full-time jobs who still struggle to pay their rent. And like I said, the SAG has like 160,000 members. You think we're all making the same money that The Rock does? Are we all making Brad Pitt money? No, of course not. Of course not. And it's, it's just it's a microcosm for society. You guys are 1% and the 99%. And it's the same cycle over and over. And that's why we went on strike. We weren't asking for a lot. And thankfully with the WGA we got it. I'm going to be honest. I have zero expectations for the actor strike. It just doesn't feel good. Just a bad vibe coming out of these talks. But we had to do it. It was literally our survival that was on the line.
Steve, I appreciate your realness and your vulnerability about it because, that's real life. And that's what I pride my brand on. I'm a disabled person out here struggling like everybody else. I think there's a misconception that, if you're on the internet or you're doing anything in any kind of showbiz capacity, you're just bringing in the bucks. And guys, I tell you multiple times, I'm sitting here in my freaking bathroom, all right? Like, I don't have a studio. I have an apartment, okay? Like, I don't, and I've just been so honored that you guys would even want to sit down with me because I gravitate towards television and particularly comedy because I'm a depressed person and I love good comedy. So just the fact that you guys are willing to sit down with me, talk about disability and representation, talk about the SSI Penalty Elimination Act with me is just amazing. So I made a video about you a few months ago and it really bothered me because there was a discourse happening in my comments where it's like, well, these are disabled celebrities. I don't consider them advocates. And I got a little hefty. I got a little like,
What?
right. Like, I got a little like, you do realize that these disabled people, they're actors and they're advocates. And they're actually out here advocating in a huge way for the disabled community. So why don't you break down for me when you decided to go speak for uh, DREF, the disability rights education? I'm going to butcher it, but when you decided to protest for the SSI Elimination Act, like, why did you feel the need to do that when you're already striking and you're already part of protest? Like, why did you feel compelled to go join?
They asked me to, and I'm good at it. You know, I've been public speaking since I was 9. You know, I'll be 33 next month. And if I'm still doing it, if people would still ask me to do it, then I must be doing something right. I love it. I feel like I'm usually the most radical voice in a room, right? So I feel like I help bring balance to whatever is being spoken about, right? You know, it's like when we talk about wanting to get married, you know, people can just be like, yeah, you know, we want to get married like everyone else, you know, and it's sad that we can't. And I'm just like, yeah, we are not going to stop fighting until we get what we want, right? Because, you know, the elected officials behind us get to do whatever we want, whatever they want, but they don't control our lives, right? So why should we have to play by a different set of rules, right? Just because we look different, you know? Like, no one should have to choose between getting married and having their health insurance. Because literally no one else has to do that. Right? So I'm the voice that kind of gives people a more radical perspective. You know, I'm the guy that really pushes people to think differently. Right? And yeah, a lot of times I make people uncomfortable. But that's because I say the truth that people don't really want to hear.
Right.
Or they're not used to hearing it. So I love being that guy. I really do. And I want to continue to be that guy. So that's why I keep doing it.
It's fun, but it's so frustrating. I mean, I find such loneliness sometimes, even in the disabled community, because I'll be talking about like Medicaid or the fact that there's a caregiver shortage, or you know, the fact that disabled people can lose their Medicaid, their health insurance in an instant. And when you use these words like Medicaid, SSI, there's this disconnect. At least when I'm in rooms with able-bodied people, they're like, disabled people are dying and being institutionalized on a daily basis in 2023? Absolutely. Like, and
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
you know, Jim and I just like sitting here going like, how did, you know, Judy Human, may she rest in peace. We lost her earlier this year. How applicants before us, people like Jim, just deal with the day. I mean, the man has a podcast with the American Academy Awards. Like, it's just the highest rank But still, when they look at people like us, they see a disabled person, somebody who is probably homeless, probably living in poverty. It's tough. It's tough to keep talking about these issues, and particularly with the strike. So, not to get too nuanced, but a lot of people were coming out and saying the struggle with the actors strike currently, we don't have any mechanisms set in place for the things that you're talking about. So when we do striking for labor unions and things like that, there's mechanisms put in place for people striking so they can live. When there's a lack of infrastructure and you don't really understand how advocacy works in that regard, at least I get the sense people weren't expecting this to come. And, there was a lack of the mechanisms needed in social justice work to make sure that disabled actors were taken care of.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't really matter like what industry we're in. We're always gonna fall through the cracks. It doesn't matter if I'm on TV, right? It doesn't matter that, I have all these projects lined up. I'm still gonna fall through the cracks just because of how I was born. And I am doing my absolute best and hardest to change that for everybody. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but if I could always set it up for the next generation of disabled people, then yeah, it's better than nothing.
Unfortunately, disabled people are often an afterthought, and it really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, or not a thought at all.
That's why Steve is there in that room making people, because literally they are not thinking about it. But on a little bit of a positive note, I do want to say when I sat down with Director Paris Barkley, I hope that we're at least, I've got my opinions about Selma Blair as a disabled advocate, right? But I think we're starting to kind of be like, oh wow, disabled people can be actors and disabled people are critical in these comedies that we're trying to put together. We should make more accessible environments, because I'll tell you right now, a movie set or a TV set that Steve's been on is not accessible, am I right? These are afterthought things, and disabled people before us, like the disabled people in the 1939 film Freaks, which I fucking love because disabled people get revenge in the end. Am I right? They were treated horribly. That's just historically noted. The disabled people on set were treated like less than by able-bodied actors of the time period, because they were just like, we're not even in the same league. So there has been change. It's just incremental. And I think that's one of the hardest things in the disabled community. There is active change. It's just small snail-like steps, like the slowest it can possibly be.
Yeah, it's too slow.
It's too slow. But when we have people like Steve on TV, I love Ramy. It's so funny. Like, why don't we write disabled characters like this? I'm serious. I don't know if you saw it, but I saw parallels between your performance in Ramy and sex education. Y'all are losing your shit over George Robinson. He did a wonderful job. But I'm over here like Steve Way is like doing it all day, every day. And again, I think it comes from creating an arc where in your comedy, when you're on TV, you're doing advocacy. You're talking about PCA care. You're talking about, the narrative of disabled people faking their disability. You're talking about, the politics of a, disabled person being with a, person who looks essentially able-bodied. Like, there's a lot of political things that happen on the show, Ramy. Not just from the disability side, but also, from culturally, politically, especially with season 3. I mean, you're doing it, Steve. You're doing a good job. You're like, I'm not special, but you are. You're so special to me.
Thank you. I just want I just want to make our lives easier, because I know I have the platform to help do that. The hard part is just getting people to listen to me. And I think, again, that's just a microcosm for the entire community.
What steps have you seen during this strike to kind of include disabled people in the conversations? Is it just you showing up and then therefore you're included in the conversation? Like,
I mean, not most of the time, but I gotta shout out the Inevitable Foundation. They're an organization that has done so much for disabled screenwriters. They're on the lines every day, trying to make the bigger lines as inclusive as possible. They're always giving out grants to disabled screenwriters, and yeah, it's really wonderful to have so many people that have our backs. But even they can only do so much when no one else will listen. Like you said, it's happening. It's just too slow.
I would agree it's too slow. I would agree. I think one of the biggest things with the SSI Elimination Penalty Act is trying to get it so that it's seen and it's visible to the general populace. And again, I've seen disabled people just out there, it's in my bio, guys, if you want to sign the petition. I want to be a positive disabled person, and I want to believe that we're going to get this passed, okay? I want to believe that. I do. Like, at my core, I'm an optimist, and I think any disabled people who do any form of advocacy, even though people think I'm a cynical, whatever, but like, yes, there's cynicism to being a disabled advocate, but to keep doing what we're doing every single day, that's a form of optimism. That's a form of believing that if we show up every single day digitally in real life, we're going to make a difference. That's where it comes down. I really think it's just, you think that your impact isn't huge, but you know how many disabled actors, like, they don't even talk to me? Like, I'm just like, I get it. I'm a nobody. I understand, but I'm also like, I'm trying to help. I'm on your side. I want to see more disabled people on screen. And I get that. I get that disabled people don't want to be typecasted. They don't want to be the disabled character. I don't know how I feel about, like, disabled people who are like, I want to be an able-bodied character. I'm like, you know what I mean? That seems like up in a different way, no matter.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No. It's just like, I don't know. I mean, people are always gonna have their, ideas of like what it means to just be disabled. And, a lot of us aren't going to agree with it, but I think, it's a lot more nuanced than how it sounds on the surface. It's pretty gray, right? But I think it's pretty black and white to say what our portrayals on television would be that would hurt or help the community. Especially when it comes to changing society's perspective of us. I think we know what's going to help and what's going to hurt. At least I do. But, what do I know?
No, I think you have an amazing balance because everything you say, there's a little bit of truth. And every time you get on screen, okay, again, like, you are the funniest part. Ramy, I love you too. Also, you're very good, and I love your parents. Your parents are hilarious. The sister is a really good storyline, but Steve is fucking funny. It's like, first season, you got Ramy and his friends in a diner, and everybody's saying, like, I hope you die. Like, just got relaxed. I think sometimes when I talk to disabled actors, they're like, oh, I'm not doing that much to push the narrative. I'm not, I'm not taking a stance one way or the other. But I like to believe that your character, Steve, has an immense amount of disability pride and is disabled and proud. Because I don't see in your portrayal of Steve, like, that you pretend like your disability doesn't exist.
Oh,
And I
no.
want to see Hollywood go in that direction. But again, I don't speak for the entirety of the community. I want to see more disabled and proud characters. And I've actually talked to producers about this concept, and it's not received well. But that's, it's neither here nor there.
No, I feel like my character definitely believes that is better than everyone else because he's disabled.
I get that sense. I kind of love that shit a little bit. I'm a little bit of a cocky bastard like that.
Yep, same.
Mhm. Mhm. There's, I think, and I've seen it on both sides, right? Because I've seen disabled actors be like, I want to bring out the humanity of this character. I want to bring out, I want people to see beyond the disability, but the concept of disability pride is people don't see beyond the disability. But it's not to say Steve is a trope. Steve is not a fucking trope. He's got Bella Hadid on his arm, who's also got a disability that's up for debate. But, like, it's also funny because these are issues that impact the disabled community every single day. I mean, every single day we're talking about, like, disabled people being accused of faking. Every single day we're talking about disabled people not being able to drive and not having access to transportation. Every single day we're talking about not having accessibility to residential homes and having people pick us up and carry us. But then, you have Steve with the salty attitude who's just like, yeah, this is bullshit. Like, I mean, every single day we're having a conversation about disability and sex. Should you jerk off your disabled best friend?
Always.
From claiming
Always.
disability, yes, always.
Always. Every day.
Every damn day. You hear that? If your disabled friend wants to go to a strip club and have strip club titties in their face, do that for your disabled friend.
Yep.
For all the social services that might be shook that I just said that. Yes, that's what I believe.
If not, if you don't do it, you're ableist.
Exactly. If you're not jerking off your best friend, you're ableist. You hear that, Ramy? You are not ableist. You are one of us, okay?
That's
I
right,
will
that's
send you
right.
your disability card in the mail, all right? Like, you're good.
Solidarity. Solidarity.
I mean, when you, but it's the, guys, if you haven't seen it, and I don't want to promote studio or television, but it means so much to me. And you bring up the bear, and I know that there were executive producers from Ramy who also worked on the bear. And I very much get the same kind of vibe. So I'm hoping to see a cousin, possibly Steve Way. Like, I really, really love that show. A lot of people say the last season was too stressful. I think anyone who's grown up in a dysfunctional family like I was, I wasn't born. I had a dad that hated the fact that I had a disability, called me ugly, called me worthless, crippled, all that shit. And I'm like, I feel like if you're a disabled person and you grew up in dysfunction, you understand the bear just fine. Um, uh, but again, when you're trying to talk about like traumas and things like that, and there's always a line with comedy, which Steve knows, like, it either goes too much in one direction or too much in the other direction. But it's Ramy is a good balance, and Steve is the shining part. So when you sat down with Bella Hadid, because I know you had, and you had a lot of sessions with her, what was her reception of disability? Somebody who is so emphatically perfect, the ideal woman, like, and talking about disability rights issues and talking about these things that you were going to be talking about on screen. How was she receptive? Like, I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
curious.
oh yeah. I mean, she walked into my dressing room for the first time. I was like, "Hey, what's up, Steve? How are you?" I wasn't worried about it at all. I think, she's definitely someone who I really admire because she has a very, very large platform and uses it to speak out about what she believes in. And, whether you agree with her side or not, you gotta respect it, you gotta admire it. She's not afraid to talk about what's on her mind. And it's gotten her in a lot of trouble recently. Right? And I think she knew that was gonna happen. But regardless, she wanted to just say it anyway. Because that's what she believes in. And that's exactly how I want to live my life and use my platform. Right? You might hate me for it. Right? And I probably didn't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to say it anyway. So, deal with it.
Deal with it. Steve, I think the funniest thing about your platform is how many God bless yous you receive on a daily basis. Like, you could literally be posting about Ramy Youssef jerking you off, and somebody would be saying, God bless you, Steve. Like, I'm like sitting there
As
reading
they
your,
should.
laughing my fucking ass off. I'm like, are they missing the joke entirely? I know you do stand-up comedy, so it's like, do you feel that when you are on stage? You're like, God, they're so fucking afraid to laugh. Like, they're so afraid. Like, a funny disabled person? What a strange concept. Like, you're supposed to
Yeah.
be in somewhere.
I realize that. Um, if, uh, if I don't get the audience on my side within the first 2 minutes, then I'm gonna have a problem. I have to make the audience comfortable enough to laugh within the first 2 minutes, or I've lost them for the whole show. And it took me a really long time to figure out exactly how to do that. But I think I got it now. But that's really my only worry going into doing a set. Am I going to be able to change the audience's perspective within the first 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think you do.
Oh yeah. I mean, 99 times out of 100 I do. And if I don't, then, I'll get them eventually. But, like I said, I think I figured it out.
I think one of the things, and I'm sorry I keep going back to Ramy, but like you allow, if this makes sense, you allow. So my sister loves that show. She thinks you're the funniest part. I'm like, he is the funniest part. He's so funny. I'm not saying it to blow smoke up your ass. I'm literally like, he's so funny. And okay, I'm a disabled person. I'm her fucking sister, okay? And she's learned more from your disabled experience on screen than mine. So I take personal affront to that. I'm just like, what the fuck? But also, I think you give this comfortability to people. It's like, oh, it's okay to laugh and acknowledge an oppressive systemic issue at the same time. I do think it's possible to have a comedy. I think one of the interesting things about comics right now is, the narrative is like everybody's too PC. We can't do comedy. We can't do comedy. But I think disabled comedians in particular are saying you can do comedy, but you don't have to punch down the entire community to be funny.
No, like, comedy is very hard. Not punching down on people is easy. And a lot of people don't understand that.
They really don't.
Nope. No, you don't have to punch down. Punching down is a choice. And if you think punching down is funny, then you're doing it wrong.
Right. I'm so excited to see shows like Ramy, like Sex Education, like The Bear. There's this really other funny movie or show with two Hispanic people, and they talk about I get a very Ramy vibe from, I forgot what it was called, but I think more as Hollywood becomes politically conscious, I get the sense that they're like, we can actually integrate important social issues into comedy, and it can be tremendously effective and funny, and people like it. Not looking away from these issues and saying, okay, we're going to have an hour show or an hour set where we don't think about real life. You can think about real life and it could still be funny.
Yeah, I get it. It's not that hard.
Right. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that was it.
Well, let's do some final thoughts here. I feel like I've kept you a while. I'm so sorry, but I'm just so happy to be
Yeah,
sitting.
no, it's all good.
Because
It's all
I'll
good. I
never,
love this.
probably never be in your part of the woods. I'll never be able to take you to a Yankees game. I'm sorry to say that they're not doing very well this.
Oh, it's not good. It's not good. It was actually the first non-COVID season where I didn't go to a game. So it's yeah, I don't know. it's frustrating. You know, I guess I've been blessed because, you know, I grew up watching them win the World Series like every year. So, you know, anything less than a World Series is considered a failure. Yeah, it's not good.
You're talking to a Cubs fan here, so I mean,
Right. So you see the difference in where the bar is, right? Right. Yeah. You know.
let's see, like, yeah. All right, but I still think the curse of George Steinbrenner. I mean, his decisions are still kind of lingering with the Yankees. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also does it help that his kids have no idea how to run a franchise? You know, it's like Succession in real life.
I'm sorry to say it, Steve. I'm heckling you now, but I mean the days of Derek Jeter are over, Steve. So I don't know what to tell you there.
I just want to say real quick, my boy, Nick Noblet just came into the chat. Okay, Nick is a young disabled actor, and Nick played the young version of me on season 1 of Ramy.
Nick, did
Yeah, so shout out to Nick, I love you. I hope you and your family are doing well.
Steve?
Yeah, he's the one that played young Steve in the flashback episode, season 1, episode 4.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Well,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm like, I love that, Steve. I was like, oh, it's a little Steve. Like sometimes in comedies or in movies in general, they don't do a good job of getting a person that looks like.
Oh, they nailed it.
They nailed it with this. I was like, oh, that's a little Steve there. Like, you're just rolling in your little wheelchair. I'm like, I like that too. I don't know if they're disabled. I hope, but you know,
Yes.
they are okay.
Oh no, Robin. No, Robin. I made very sure of that.
Well, you never know. I don't want to put you on the spot. Like I don't want to do
Robin.
Cranston scenario.
Yeah, Ramy and I made very sure of that.
Thank you. You guys are fucking amazing. You guys need to watch this show. I know we're in the middle of a strike, but you need to follow Steve. You need to check out his comedy shows. You need to check out his amazing merch so you can have Steve on your titties here. Like,
That's right.
You need to support disabled actors right now during this strike. What you can do right now for disabled people on strike, follow their social media channels, go to their comedy shows, buy their merchandise. They're literally trying to be out here being entrepreneurs, trying to be actors, trying to make a buck. They're just like us, guys. Like, they're disabled and they're struggling too. Like, let's make sure the disabled community is always fucking bitching. I'll be honest about disabled representation. But you know what we're not good at, disabled community? We're not good at celebrating the disabled representation that we actually have. Support people like Steve, like Lolo, like Rodney Buford from the Netflix documentary, Kevin Woodard from The Last of Us. Support these actors that are actually out here doing it. Support the Easter Seals Film Challenge, which I feel like is not associated with necessarily studios per se, but independent films. support independent projects, support podcasts. Sorry, Steve, I hope I didn't say anything wrong.
No, not at all. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I can't.
Well, guys, I don't know any of this shit about acting or whatever. I've just done like the Easter Seals Film Challenge. So I will say that. But I have been blessed because I wanted to start a podcast that was highlighting disabled celebrities and highlighting these performances of disabled representation. And Danny Woodburn, lately, he was on Billions. Is my favorite show of all time. And I saw Danny Woodburn, and if you guys don't know Danny Woodburn, he's a legend. He's from Seinfeld. He's one of the first disabled people that I ever saw when I was a kid. Like, ever saw. That was a real disabled person on screen. So, again, I understand that disabled people don't want to be tied to those tropes. They're like, I don't want to be just a disabled character. But to us, you're not just a disabled character. You're what I want to see. You're the person I want to see. I want to see somebody like Steve on TV. I don't want to see some basic Becky on TV. I want to see Steve. And we need more people who look like us on TV and are actually representative of what's happening in the world right now. I know there's a lot of political stuff. You guys know that I've been posting a lot about the conflict and everything going on right now. There's a lot going on, and a lot of times people are making fun of celebrities for making mistakes. But you know what? Like, we're people at the end of the day, and we're all just doing the best we can do. You know what I mean? Like, these are people, guys. Like, let's treat them like people, you know? That's my little soapbox for that. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Steve. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm sorry if this interview has been all over the place, but like I said, I haven't talked to Steve since like 2020, maybe 19, and I adore Steve. And he's in my DMs telling me I'm doing an amazing job, and I'm like, oh my God, the actor thinks I'm doing an amazing job. Like, still getting all like flushed over Jim. And again, like Jim, he's, he's one of the biggest advocates in our community. And he says all the time, I'm just a disabled person. I might be Oscar nominated. I'm just a disabled person. And you know what Jim is doing now? He is promoting disabled directors and producers putting together projects. So for those of you out here that don't think disabled actors and disabled directors and producers are doing enough for the disabled community, they're doing a lot. They are directly involved in the issues that impact you. So thank you so much, Steve. This has been amazing. So thank you, guys. Thank you for all these questions. For those of you who want to know, go and follow Steve. And also, I will have this interview posted later. I'm going to cut it up. I'm going to do the captioning, do the accessibility. Remember, with accessibility, it's not about perfection. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about doing the best we can. I'm a disabled person. I'm one person out here. I'm doing the best I can with accessibility, okay? So I'm going to clean this footage up, get it captioned for y'all so you can check out this amazing interview. Steve, thank you so much for your time. I love you. Thank you for all you do. I can't wait until the strike is settled, and then I can see you back on my favorite TV shows, on my favorite platforms. I will be cheering on your comedic journey this whole time, and I know that there's some projects in the works that I really want to see come to fruition with you. So I'm out here rooting for you, Steve, every day.
I love you, Aaron. Thank you for talking to me, and I can't wait to do it again.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
Steve. Oh, if I can